The Argentine government announced the launching of a new credit line for retirees and pensioners. Russian defense minister informed that Ukraine's military casualties exceeded 26,000 since Moscow started its counteroffensive during the Russian military operation. The Egyptian government said it will send off $1.9 billion worth of stakes in state-owned companies in a move that promises to bolster Egypt's allied private sectors. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We'll begin with the news. Stay with us. The government of Argentina announced the launching of a new credit line for retirees and pensioners that will have a subsidized rate. During a meeting with retired and pensioned workers, the Minister of Economy, Sergio Massa, and the head of the National Social Security Administration Agency, Fernanda Berta, indicated that the beneficiaries will be able to access loans through the Argentine integrated social security system. Sergio Massa explained that a measure arose after the exchange of dollar debt in the hands of the public sector, and that under this system they seek to support retirees.
This afternoon, we want to share with you the decision to generate a new credit, a new NSSA credit, which has an amount of up to 400,000 pesos for retirees and pensioners. This means that those who are retirees will be able to access a credit with a very low interest rate, the lowest in interest rates in the market. It means that with only 29% of interest, retirees of Argentina will be able to access a credit of up to 400,000 pesos.
In this sense, the Argentine Minister of Economy, Sergio Massa, points out that the new line of credit is intended to support retirees.
The system has to try to protect and take care of our retirees. In this way, part of what we earn, 50 billion pesos, will be allocated to a fixed-rate credit program, up to 400,000 pesos per month, for the 7.5 million retirees and pensioners in Argentina, in up to 48 installments with fixed rates at 29% annually, because it is a subsidized rate of the state, to guarantee that this credit has the virtue of also serving as an instrument for retirees to consume, travel, fix their houses, buy something for their grandchildren, and beat the inflation, which is the other great task we have ahead of us.
On Tuesday, Lieutenant Colonel Mauro Zit, former aide de camp to former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, testified at the Parliamentary Commission of Inquiry into the attempt coup on January 8 in Brasilia. The hearing was requested after the federal police found on Zit's cell phone messages exchanged with other military officers, which hinted to actions that will include an attempt to seize power. Senator Rogério Carvalho said there were the indications that the military officer was plotting a coup against President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva. In Brazil, the Brazilian Statistics Institute announced that inflation has its biggest drop in June at 3.16%, the lowest inflation rate since September 2020. According to the Consumer Price Index, prices fell by 0.08% in June. This shows that over the past 12 months, prices have seen a substantial slowdown in inflation. On Tuesday, the 13 Mexican security agents who had been detained on Monday by protesters were released, informed the governor of the state of Guerrero, Evelyn Salgado. In her Twitter profile, the governor reported that the residents also unlocked the highway landing to the tourist port of Acapulco at the height of Chilpancingo, where 5 cab drivers were murdered over the weekend. Demonstrators demanded the release of 2 people who, according to the government, belonged to a drug gang, the Ardillos. Raro is a strategic state for drug trafficking because of its location in the Pacific coast, according to authorities. A heat warning remains in effect for the northwest territories, where temperatures are expected to exceed 29 degrees Celsius. The country's environmental authorities have issued a warning that the heat wave will extend to the town of Inuvik, 200 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle. Thermometers have set new records with 4 of the 5 highest readings in the last 8 years. Officials said some forest fires were still burning in several regions of the country due to the heat wave. On Tuesday, a study led by the scientists from the French Public Health Institute and the Barcelona Institute for Global Health said that the continent will face more than 84,000 deaths from heat waves by 2040 if not action is taken. The summer of 2022 was the hottest record in Europe, with successive heat waves causing record temperatures, drought, and wildfires. Scientists analyzed temperatures and mortality data for the period 2015-2022 for the 823 regions in 35 European countries, with a total population of more than 543 million people. From this data, they built epidemiological models to predict temperature-related mortality for each region and a week of summer the overall season last year. Let's take a very first break, and remember, you can now follow us on our TikTok account as teleSUR English. There you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu informed that Ukraine's military casualties exceeds 26,000 since Moscow started its counteroffensive during the Russian special military operation. The high Russian official detailed that since the beginning of the counteroffensive, 21 aircraft, 5 helicopters, 1,244 tanks, and other Ukrainian armored fighting vehicles have been destroyed. He also informed that Russian Air Defense Force had also shot down 176 shells from armor system, 27 Storm Shadows cruise missiles, and 483 drones since June the 4th.
This will naturally have the effect of prolonging the conflict. Neither us nor the Americans nor Kiev have joined the Convention on Cluster Munition. Understanding the threats to peaceful civilians, Russia has refrained and continues to refrain from their deployment in the special military operation. In the case of the United States supplying cluster munition to Ukraine, the Russian armed forces will be compelled to respond with analogous warfare methods.
Russia denounced to the United Nations that Germany, Denmark, and Sweden are not providing data on the investigations of the Nord Stream sabotage. Russia's permanent representative to the United Nations, Vasily Nembasia, noted that Moscow reserved the right to independently investigate the pipeline's explosions.
President, we want to stress that any efforts to cover up the sabotage in the Baltic Sea are doomed to fail. We expect the authorities of Germany, Denmark, and Sweden to take concrete steps to conduct an objective and transparent investigation into all the circumstances of the incident, with the obligatory participation of Russian investigative authorities and other interested parties. In the meantime, we reserve the right to conduct our own investigation. In this context, we took note of the statement in the letter from the authorities of Germany, Denmark, and Sweden that access to the crime scene is allegedly open. We presume that in this case, our investigative authorities can independently examine the crime scene at any time as part of the criminal proceedings initiated by the Prosecutor General's Office of the Russian Federation pursuant to the Article and Acts of International Terrorism.
Nembasia said that Moscow will continue to expose the Nord Stream incident at the UN Security Council until the perpetrators were identified and held accountable.
The Russian Federation will continue raising the issue of the Nord Stream sabotage in the Council until the perpetrators are identified and held accountable. The letter mentioned today leaves little doubt that this is not a goal that the three national investigations seek to accomplish. We will use all the means at our disposal to make sure that this goal is in fact achieved. We trust that our constructively minded colleagues in the Security Council and other members of the international community will support our efforts, and we are open to cooperation in this area. The Council must make it clear that crimes against cross-border pipeline infrastructure, which pose a direct threat to international peace and security, will not go unpunished. Only then can we prevent the recurrence of such crimes to which any state could fall victim.
On Tuesday, the remains of 30 victims of the Srebrenica massacre in Bosnia were laid to rest as thousands commemorate the atrocity 20th anniversary and growing tensions. Bosnian Serb forces captured the eastern town on July 11, 1995, and in the following days summarily killed some 8,000 Muslims in an act labeled as a genocide by two international courts. The remains of most of the victims were later found in mass graves in eastern Bosnia, where the perpetrators moved them from original burial sites to cover up the crime. Many of the 30 victims buried on Tuesday were identified in previous years, but the families choose to wait until more of the remains were recovered.
I cannot describe how I feel. I was here during the war, from the start in 1992 until the signing of the Dayton Peace Agreement. I lost my mother, a brother, two cousins, uncles, and many other relatives. It had a devastating impact on me.
We are very sad, and we will always be sad. There is nothing more I could say. There is so much sadness in us for all this year. We are struggling to live with the consequences of the genocide. But we must keep talking about this genocide because we, the victims, are being humiliated constantly, and that is not right. I think we must find a way to live together.
On Tuesday, the UN Human Rights Council is heading towards an advice vote on religious hatred following recent Quran burnings, with some Western nations reluctantly filling the draft resolution encourages too far on free speech. Pakistan and other organizations of the Islamic cooperation countries secured an urgent debate at the UN's top right body after a Quran was burned outside Stockholm's main mosque, triggering a diplomatic backlash across the Muslim world. Pakistan's draft resolution condemns all manifestations of religious hatred, including public and predetermined acts of desecration of the Holy Quran, and underscores the need to hold accountable those responsible. On Tuesday, Chinese Vice President Han Zheng stated that the country is willing to work with all countries to address global development challenges to realize common prosperity. The Vice President pointed out that a series of important initiatives, including the Global Development Initiative, GDI, proposed by the Chinese President Xi Jinping, have contributed Chinese wisdom to solving common problems faced by mankind and won extensive acclamation from the international community. Let's take our final break, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you will be able to watch our new reviews, top stories, special broadcasts, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. One final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. On Tuesday, the Egyptian government said that it had inked a series of deals to sell off $1.9 billion worth of stakes in state-owned companies in a move that promises to bolster Egypt's allied private sectors. In a televised news conference, Prime Minister Mustafa Mabli stated that the government had received $1.65 billion and the equivalent of to $250 million in Egyptian pounds for the sales. Malablit points out that the salience of shares in the country's large state-owned communities company Telecom Egypt contributes to $1.9 billion, but provides none further details. Among the other sales outlines in Tuesday's news conference was the deal to sell off 25 or 30% of Egypt's stakes in chemical companies, Elab, petrochemicals firms Etreco, and petroleum company, the Egyptian drilling company, to the Abu Dhabi Development Holding Company for $800 million.
We announced today that we have been achieved contracts with the private sector, which will be announced by the Minister of Planning, and in total are $1.9 billion American dollars. In total, as the minister will announce, as a country, we will be receiving that from a few companies. From that number, we received $1.65 billion, with the remainder of $250 billion that we will get in Egyptian pound, or we have actually received them, or a part of them, from the communications company and some other companies that the minister will talk about. But what has been implemented and we are announcing now is that we've worked with 1.9 billion in a very short period of time. We will announce another deals that will pass 1 billion.
Protesters in Israel blocked highways and gathered at Tel Aviv airport on Tuesday, stepping up resistance to the hard-right government's judicial overhaul package. Opponents said threatens democracy. Thousands of people were reportedly arrested by the police, who used water cannons and deployed mounted officers to disperse demonstrators in Tel Aviv. Announced in January by the government of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the plan has split the nation and inspired one of the country's biggest ever protest movement, with weekly demonstrations offered up by tens of thousands. On Tuesday, Russia had a veto at Western United Nations Security Council draft resolution violating Syria's sovereignty under the pretext of delivering cross-border aid. Syria's permanent representative to the UN, Ambassador Bassam Sabak, said that Western states are still politicizing the humanitarian aid and going far beyond in exploiting its mechanism as a tool of pressure and political blackmail against Syria. Sabak said that since the first date of launching consultations regarding the extension the resolution's effect, Syria has been kept on adopting a constructed approach to meet Syrian people needs without any discrimination or politicization.
Today, we are witnessing once again another act which is played out by Western countries, and is part of the show called the Cross-Border Mechanism for providing humanitarian assistance to Syria. Its main characteristics are a complete disregard for the interests of the Syrian people and the intent to artificially provoke Russia into using the veto.
Despite the aftermath of the war and the blockade, Syrian Society does not give up its unconditional support for people with physical or mental disabilities. The joint Syrian-Russian recreational activity organized in Damascus to celebrate the Russian Day of Children with Down syndrome is proof of this reality. Let's see the details from our correspondent Hisham Wenus.
Around 80 Syrian children with Down syndrome gathered for an interactive workshop entitled Children of the Sun. The event was organized by the Russian Cultural Center in Damascus in cooperation with Syrian civil society associations dedicated to the care and support of disabled people.
We wanted to celebrate this day with Syrian children suffering from Down syndrome, to cheer them up through this interactive activity of singing, dancing, drawing, and distributing gifts in collaboration with the Syrian Civil Association Al-Raja and the Russian Cultural Center in Damascus.
There are many civil associations in Syria with which we develop several activities to help people with disabilities overcome physical or mental limitations. And we recommended that this work be supported by the government, donors, and civil society as a whole.
This type of activity not only brings joy to the souls of this group of children, but also helps the handicapped to reintegrate into society and to overcome the prejudices against them. This work is carried out by the Al Raha Civil Association, which has not ceased to provide care and education for these children since 1990, despite all the difficulties caused by the war and the blockade, with the support of the Syrian authorities and friendly countries such as Russia.
Our work is based on academic methods aimed at improving the physical and mental abilities of children with disabilities in order to reintegrate them into society and make them more active so that they can function as normal people. And this requires a lot of patience, effort, dedication, and love in the midst of the current difficult situation in the country.
We assure you that we will continue our work in spite of all the difficulties in order to achieve a sustainable promotion of children with physical or mental disabilities and orphans, stressing that Syrian children need the support of all national and international institutions and organizations to help them regain joy in the midst of difficult circumstances we are going through.
The Children of the Sun, like many similar activities and initiatives aimed at helping people with physical or mental disabilities, is a clear demonstration of the importance that the Syrian people attach to the role that these people can play in the reconstruction of their country, and proof of the failure of terrorism and its Western sponsors to strike at the unity, cohesion, and social solidarity of the children of Syria.
We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also use us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For Telesur English, I'm from the South, I'm Ana Marrero. Thank you for watching.